Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are enjoying the proceedings so far. There are more exciting things to come. And with this, I would like to invite Mr. Shazad Dada, Chief Executive Officer, Standard Chartered Bank. Please give a round of applause for Mr. Shazad Dada. His topic today is about achieving growth through merger and acquisition, local and international key insights. He's got a lot of experience in merger and acquisitions with Deutsche Bank in the US, and rest he's going to talk about himself.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, TerraBiz, thank you for inviting me. And actually, it was only late last night I was told that I need to stand up in front of all of you and present a few slides and then sit on here. And my very good friend Muhammad Ali is ensured, like always, to take the easy route, which is he's going to sit and answer all the easy questions. But let me just start with, I think the topic that we'll be discussing, the topic that we are going to be discussing is achieving growth through M&A. I know you had a couple of keynote speakers talking about very successful M&A deals that they have done, and clearly I think that there are lots going on. But let me just, let me just kick it off. I have a few slides, honestly, and then would like to take questions in the panel discussion with my good friends, Samad, Murad, and Muhammad Ali. So why do we do M&A? I mean, I think this is a very basic question, and I think M&A probably is a overused word. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself, which probably you saw. So I am an M&A practitioner for the last 28 years. The last job I was doing was the TMT, which is Telecom Media Technologies M&A practice, running that for Deutsche Bank for the entire America. So, and at that time, there was a lot of M&A going on. So some of the things I'm saying is not theory, it's real life experience that I'll share with you. And then obviously, there are some entrepreneurs who have done some very successful deals, like Muhammad Ali and Samad, so we'll talk about that. But the real thing is, how do we take a small business, make it into a big one, or how do we ensure that we take a company that's doing extremely well to dominance? And M&A is typically one of the tricks or one of the key tools you can do. You can do build or buy, and the build is organic. You're doing a great job, you do it. The only thing is it will take time. Buy is your paki pakai roti aapke samne. If you can find another asset, you can buy. Speed to market, especially if it's in your own field, you can find a lot of commonalities, a lot of synergies, an overused word in the M&A arena. Or you can get into a new business that you're not in, and we'll talk about some of the examples. So it's buy or build. But this is a fact, I don't know how many of you know, that 50% of the M&A transactions that have happened globally, and this is, again, based on a series of studies done, McKinsey and Main have done it, have failed. And they've not failed because of bad strategy. Niyat sabki saaf hoti hai when they're doing a transaction. Nobody wants to put money and do a bad transaction. I'm sure there is a rationale why they're doing it, but it's the execution. People take things for granted. You know, sometimes merging two cultures, simple as that, is very, very difficult. And I think when Fareed is going to talk about, I think we can talk about the ICI culture and how was that adopted by when the Yunus brothers bought that asset. So a lot of things come into play. So don't take it for granted. M&A karai to it's going to be successful. M&A does not always lead, and it's not the right thing to do. People at times don't get this, and the result is that. This is the result. I was in America. Luckily, I was not advising AOL or Time Warner, though I was in that field. And at that time, you know, it was the biggest deal that happened. In fact, to date, it's the top 5 deals in the world. And everybody was using AOL. I think looking at this crowd, it seems everybody was using AOL. We don't have Gen Y sitting here because they would say, what is AOL? But that was the old ISP business, wire ISP business. And Time Warner, which was a conglomerate content business, all the big shows that they do, they said they want to get into distribution. So it was merging a content business with distribution. And at that time, it was always thought that that would be the smartest deal to do. On paper, makes a lot of sense. But they paid $112 billion. I repeat, $112 billion. The 100 million clients, they thought they can immediately take those clients, sell the content, wrap it up, and boom, it's going to be a huge success. Because AOL was growing like crazy. AOL market cap had just gone out of the roof. And the deal, when you combine this, it was a stock merger. They paid it became a $300 billion deal. 4 or 5 years later, when they separated, they had to lay off 2,500 people, and this is after they had laid off several thousands of people along the way, and the value destruction was around $200 billion. $200 billion. Our GDP is $300 billion, just to give you some idea. So please don't take it for granted, M&A kara ya M&A karna chahiye, because M&A, and I'm an M&A banker, I make money when you guys do M&A, but I'm telling you it's not necessarily the smartest thing to do. But it has, and these are some other examples where it has not worked. The other one was a very recent deal, Microsoft buying Nokia. They bought it for $7.2 billion in 2013. Everybody thought that would be a great deal. They wrote it off all in just 2 years. 2 साल में ऐसी क्या चीज़ Nokia की उन्हें पता चली कि, and I will see a lot of accountants sitting here. What did they find out about Nokia that caused them to take the entire value down, write it off? And you know, accountants, when they ask you to write it off, there must be, you know, what was the value destruction? Another name, and this again is something, Quaker Oats, an old-fashioned porridge maker, cereal maker. Snapple, very high buzzword, Gen Y, and everybody wants to have iced tea. It was the thing, at least when I was in America, this was the thing. Haath mein Snapple bottle, it's better than having a Perrier bottle in your hand. You have arrived, you know, this is what it was. And they said, this is a great company, young population, let's get into the beverage business from being into a cereal maker food business. They bought it for $1.7 billion in 1994. They sold it for $300 million only 27 months later because they just couldn't make it work. Abhi bhi Snapple hai, but unfortunately Snapple has not delivered what was promised to them. So again, the reason I'm starting off, normally you start off with all the good things that have happened. I just want to lay the stage on what doesn't work. And I think this is where I wanted to just pause, and I think we'll talk about it. Some of the compelling reasons why you do it. You need to have a strategic rationale. Like I said, आप दो लोगों को बिठा देंगे और rationale निकालना है, they'll come up with a rationale. But please make sure that that rationale is thought through and it can be executed. If it's not executable, then don't bother. You will destruct value for your shareholders, and the fiduciary duty of yourselves as your CEO or as a board is to create shareholder value. Why do you do M&A? Why do you do organic transaction? It's to create value. It has to be accretive. You're not doing it for an arbitrage, and those days are gone where people can do it. It's improving the target performance. I think this is something that I think we talk a lot about, improving the target performance. And again, there are great examples of it. On improving, and typically this is, you know, private investors saying again, coming from a multinational environment, अरे ये multinational को लेंगे, इसमें बहुत fat है, इनके CEOs बहुत पैसे कमा रहे हैं, हम ये निकाल देंगे, and we'll make it into operationally we'll make it work. And there may be a lot of truth to it, but sometimes that could be a good enough reason. The other is consolidating and removing excess capacity. Cement sector में ये हो रहा है. There have been some examples of that. In a lot of other sectors, we've seen that in Pakistan alone. It's removing excess capacity and taking benefit of common cost. Like, you know, one CEO can manage 2 plants. You know, a lot of fixed costs can be amortized over two businesses, and you can really drive some great synergies out of it. But again, that synergy word is at times overused. It's accelerating market access for target product. This is, I think, where, you know, Google went out and bought YouTube. I mean, Google could have done it themselves. It would have taken them a while to get there, but they bought YouTube on the grounds that this would be a transaction which would give them market access a lot faster, and time is money, right? For them, getting there faster was much important. So having a market access point, and again, we can talk about a lot of local examples. Getting technology faster or cheaper. I think this is, again, a good example in recent times is Tata buying Jaguar. Now, Tata is, obviously, you know what Tata is. It's an Indian auto manufacturer, and them going and buying Jaguar, which is obviously, and they've so far have done a very good job. And then lastly, it's picking up the early winners. I think Facebook comes to mind, right? Snapchat jo ne uthaya. Again, they paid a dear price for it, but again, these are, I think, 5 key reasons that before one is thinking about it, what am I doing it for? And iske piche execution hai. But I think these are the 5 compelling intents that I thought I should share this with you, and happy to take any answers. And I think we can, in each one, there is a Pakistan example where Pakistani companies have done a fantastic job capitalizing on it. And obviously, when you do this, the idea is it has to create shareholder value. It has to be financially accretive transaction. When you're going to take two companies, you're going to actually create value, which will be translated into higher share price and so forth. This is my favorite, again, coming from the media space and talking about some of the things. What has worked? I talked about what hasn't worked, but I think this is a deal that has worked. Disney, we all have had Disney. We all today even live Disney through our children. Disney has been a great brand, great company, but their growth was slowing down. They had become pretty much the old-fashioned movie producer, not making money. Those studios were not making money. They have great content. But again, they were not capitalizing on it. On the other hand, you had Pixar, which was doing fantastically well with animated movies and doing some amazing, Nemo, all of these names are what they decided to do was they went ahead and they bought Disney. But instead of trying to change, and ये typical होता है, मैंने खरीदा है, I'm the boss, I'm buying you, I'm acquiring you. And typically the notion is, I'll change you, you'll do it my way or the highway. Here they did it exactly the other way. They let Disney self-destruct itself so that Pixar's values and Pixar's way of doing business was adopted by the parent company, Disney. And so far, I think it's been a fantastic journey for them. And again, I think this is where you can really get, you basically get a license to change. So I think this is, again, something that it's been well applauded by the marketplace, and I think it was the right acquisition at the right time with the right level of execution. And, so just final, I think this is my final slide, and then two slides. So Pakistan, let's put it, I was asked to talk a little bit about Pakistan contest. Again, having the privilege of working with some of our strategic clients here, and some of them who will be on the stage, I think Pakistan is ripe for consolidation. There's a lot going on. Why is it? We have a very strong macroeconomic fundamentals. I know some of you in the room disagree with that, but we are much better off today than we were 2-3 years ago. So I think, and that's been reflected in our ratings, and it's been reflected in our cost of funding and so forth, and we can have a long debate on that. Happy to have it after this. I think, no doubt, improving law and order situation, because you can have the best strategic rationale, but if the host company cannot travel if a person cannot come to Karachi or cannot go to one of the plants in Balochistan or in interior Sindh, they're not going to be attractive to that business. Having a stable law and order situation is important. I think I always say this as a banker, this is the best time to borrow. I mean, we have one of the lowest interest rates, 42-year low interest rate environment. And if you have export business, you're literally getting money for free. And I think it's a great time to borrow, but obviously borrow and utilize it at the right places, not borrow and go into speculation, which again we've seen those cycles. People have got themselves burned. I think our currency has been stable. Again, I don't want to get into where is it going, but at least for the last few years, it's been stable. And then obviously there's been a lot of foreign interest, right? So that's taking up the overall valuation of companies that are listed. And overall, we have seen that has been reflected by going back into the MSCI index and also the CPEC opportunity. So I think it seems like, with that in the backdrop and then having a very young and growing population, 50% or 55% under the age of 24, solid business built over generations. We have some great companies. I tell you, every time I go and visit clients and hear their stories, these are generational companies that have done fantastically well, and for a corporation, how they've built businesses. And again, we'll have some of these sponsors slash entrepreneurs like Muhammad Ali on stage. So we'll talk about that. Plus, there's a lot of privatization that has happened. Banking sector, it was a big success story. And then in GOP projects, a lot of GOP projects are offering great opportunities for mergers and JV. And again, we have some great stories from that. So I think this is in Pakistan context. I'll just end on this note. For us, and I know this predates me, but when we bought Union Bank, we bought it at the height of, from a valuation point of view, we paid for $413 million. And there are a lot of people who will criticize why we did it, what we did it, but I'll tell you what it did. It made us we are one of the only foreign banks that is locally incorporated. And it really gave us the relevance in this market, which we could not have had it. And had we not had it, I'm not sure if I would be standing here, because with that, we became much more embedded into the banking sector and were able to withstand some of the ups and downs that other foreign banks had challenges on. It took us from the position of from being 9th to 6th. By the way, we have, in terms of branches, we are in the bottom quartile. We are in the top, the 32 banks, we are in the bottom quartile. So we are 26, 27. But in terms of deposits, we are number 9. And in terms of operating profit, we are number 6. That shows how much operating leverage we are using. So branch strength is not always the way to go. And this is again a myth that is, and with technology coming in, digital is the way. We have achieved a lot of synergies. Our cost to income ratio, again, being a multinational, is one of the lowest in the industry. The only guy I compete with is Miyaman Shah. And he's running it as a very tight shop. That's us and him. That's the competition we have. For a foreign bank, that's phenomenal. And significant investment in people, culture, and systems. We believe that that's the way to go right now, because in our business, it's all about services, and what that allowed us was to get some real presence. Obviously, clients we had, but now with that presence, we have been able to deepen our relationships, but we have to constantly invest in systems, because technology is the way to go. And I know Irfan Ali is going to be coming and talking about also some of the state bank regulations and what's going to happen there. And obviously, it's the culture, to make sure the culture is there. So with that, let me end and take questions, or we go into Q&A. How do you want to? We go into Q&A. Chalo, good. Thanks.